This is the third episode of my presentations. Please support this program by selecting like, subscribe, and requesting notifications when our next episode is available. In 2022, our meeting was in Panama City, Panama. I was asked to prepare a video on how I design natural-looking hairlines for female hair transplant patients and a video about one of my inventions that arose from my 3D printing hobby. So let's look at those. Hi, I'm Dr. Robert Haber, hair loss expert and hair transplant surgeon from Cleveland, Ohio. Join me and the Hair Transplant Road Show as I travel the globe seeking answers to important surgical and non-surgical hair loss questions from the true experts in the field. The design of a surgically created feminine hairline has particular challenges. For men, we never try to recreate their original hairline, but for women, we have to come as close as possible. And it's critical to understand the many variations of feminine hairlines, so you don't try to recreate the same one on patient after patient. A normal feminine hairline can be one smooth semicircle from one side to the other, or it can have convexities and peaks. There's often some remnants of the original hairline left, and you can follow them, but if they're not there, you have to work with the patient to come up with a mutually acceptable design. So for example, if this woman came to us as a patient, what would we do for her? What we can see here is this is a perfectly acceptable female pattern, even if it's not a classic curved pattern. She has a fairly flat hairline here, nice temporal coverage here on both sides, but it's a flat hairline. And what we certainly could do to make this more traditionally feminine is add a little density through here. And the same on this side here. And just like that, we've given it a little bit more of a gentle curve to it. And this would not have a convexity here on either side, but a classic female pattern hairline is just a gentle curve. But did she need a hairline? I would obviously say no. But if she wanted something done, this is what we would do for this patient. Now what about through here? Could we give her a little bit of widow's peak? Sure we could. And what if she wanted something even more here? We could give a concavity here. Bring this down even further. And it gives it a little bit more irregularity, but still keeps it very feminine. So this is just one example of how we can create a hairline. But the key thing is to be aware of normal, attractive female hairlines, because they're not all the same. So here's another example of a normal feminine hairline, and it shows some important characteristics. So instead of this just perfectly smooth semicircle here, which is the classic female, in this one we're seeing this convexity that comes up like this, and then it sweeps forward. And we have a little bit of a widow's peak here. Comes back up. Again, a convexity here. And this is another example of a feminine hairline. Now, in this case, we could fill density through this zone here. We could fill some density through this zone here. And we could also try to unify and make the left side look a little bit more similar to the right for more symmetry. But this is an example of a feminine hairline, but with a different shape. The convexity, the little widow's peak. It doesn't have to be a perfectly smooth hairline to be a feminine hairline. We have to be able to adjust to what might have been the original hairline for our patients. So another example. So here's yet another example of a normal female hairline showing some very important characteristics of female hairlines. Convexity here, widow's peak, a little lack of symmetry. It still looks fine, right? But if we wanted to unify that, and I'm just going to sketch around to show this convexity, which does not appear in all feminine hairlines, but it certainly is a feature. Comes right down here into a little point, and in her, is asymmetry here as it moves back. And again, another convexity as we come down to the zone here. So if we were to do a hair transplant here, we would simply follow that line and add density behind, or if she wanted, again, we could try to make it more symmetric from left to right by coming down here like this, still respecting that convexity. Again, perfectly normal hairline. But if you had a woman who's lost the hair through back all the way back to here, then we bring it down and try to create something like this. Another example of a feminine hairline, but no two are exactly the same, which makes it challenging. Nature provides us with many examples of beautiful hairlines. So be an artist, observe those hairlines so that you can then recreate them surgically for your patient. Regardless of whether you harvest your grafts by strip or FUE, you will at times have hundreds of grafts awaiting implantation. How you store and care for these grafts are critical to their survival. Since the earliest days of hair transplantation, hair surgeons have used the Petri dish because they were readily available. But grafts floating in a Petri dish cannot be separated by follicle number. So Petri dishes divided into quadrants were used, but some of us find that grafts can become overhydrated when floating, and fishing out free-floating grafts can be like a carnival game. Petri dishes with a rest-on foam insert can also be used. Neat piles of grafts can be arranged on the foam, but if too little fluid is used, the grafts can become dehydrated, and if too much fluid is used, the neat little piles float away. A number of alternatives exist, but I decided to create my own. I use SolidWorks as my 3D CAD design program, and a Prusa printer to print my prototypes. After many flawed iterations, I finally arrived at my current graft-holding tray design. The tray is designed to fit into the most common chilling units, including the ice-filled PVC tray and the cold chiller, or to sit directly on the counter for room temperature storage. Each tray contains 50 wells, and each well is designed to hold 10 grafts, for a total of 500 grafts per tray. The wells have a teardrop shape and are angled such that the base of the grafts sit in the holding solution while the hair shafts are gathered together at the top, making it convenient to grab a group of 10 grafts at a time. This cutaway view demonstrates the design of the wells. The top row of wells is slightly shallower than the rest, designed to accept single hair grafts. Each well is connected to its neighbors by a channel to allow metabolic byproducts to diffuse throughout the holding solution, and the channels are connected to large reservoirs of your holding solution of choice at the top and the bottom. There's also a raised tab used to grip while transporting the tray. As I plant grafts, I find it very helpful to look at the loading table and at a glance know exactly how many grafts of each size I have available to plant, allowing me to distribute the grafts appropriately. I have yet to find an autoclavable material that's easy to print with so that I can reuse these trays multiple times. So for now, I use a very inexpensive material called polylactic acid, or PLA, and discard the trays after each use. My staff love these trays as they have improved our workflow and graft handling. Now, these graft holding trays are not currently commercially available, but I will happily share my 3D printing files with you so that you can print them by yourself at home. And if you don't already own a 3D printer, you should consider getting one. They're not very expensive, they're a lot of fun, and with one, you can bring your own ideas to life. Thank you.